That was the wrong button. We almost streamed this. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm Piece of Cake. Say hello, Nightbringer.
Goodbye.
Okay, you went back to his goodbye for this one.
I did.
So,
we had a scrap recording.
This is the second time we're recording this. I find it funny that on the first one we talked about my dad watering his kettle.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened. We were what, half an hour in? Half an hour in, and then kettle watered, power gone.
Is your dad a slapstick or a physical comedian?
No, he's just an asshole.
Okay.
Yeah.
It feels like physical comedy, except nobody appreciates it.
There's no physical comedy. He's just a dick. But anyway, I don't even remember what we said. I know we talked about watering the kettle. Like, so here's the trouble, chat. We've done a kind of introductory chat already.
And this is another one. It's good enough.
And
Deadly Lady.
Deadly. We never actually said the title of the episode in the last one. So maybe we're even doing better, right? But yes, Deadly Lady, I think is meant to refer to a boat or make you think of a boat. But it also has other connotations within the episode itself. We were doing so well on the last one, and now trying to capture that magic again.
Well, the magic is you and I and our personal, deep connection. Goodbye.
Yep, we're definitely done then. All right. Good episode.
I'm here to.
All right. Okay. What did we talk about in the first intro? The fact that Guernsey got hit by a little bit of a storm.
Right.
Which is why I was saying in the first one about the fact that wind, rain, power was fine. My dad makes a cup of tea, power blows. Don't know what he does with the kettle. I honestly don't. Part of me doesn't want to know because of other things that I found when I've looked into things that he does, and I don't want to know.
I hate that feeling. Curiosity, but you know it's just going to be that much more infuriating if you find out.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Like 100%. It wouldn't surprise me if he was trying to get my attention because he wanted like a biscuit or something. Because he has done this for that exact reason before.
I have seen someone online, they're sitting on the couch next to their significant other, and the significant other has left their phone in the kitchen. And they send a text to the phone that says, "While you're in the kitchen, would you bring me some chips?" So the significant other gets up, goes to the kitchen, sees the text, and then has to bring them chips.
I just wouldn't do it.
I would do it the first time because it was cheeky and funny.
No.
After that, now fuck off.
I just wouldn't do it.
Or you'd come back with a bag of chips for yourself.
Oh, yeah, I'd have the chips for myself, yeah, and I would eat those. And I would say, sorry, but your phone ended up in the garbage disposal. And it's fucking ruined. And fuck you.
Well, no. It would be your phone in that case that went off in the kitchen. So you can't grind your own phone.
Oh, okay. In that case, I just wouldn't go and bother looking at my phone. I'm spending time with my SO. Why would I give a shit about my phone? In fact, why is the SO on her phone if we're spending time together?
Because this is 2024.
Yeah, well, fuck that. This is going to be a more sweary episode because of how pissed off I am about the fact my dad watered his kettle while we were doing this.
That's why we took some time between episodes for me to vent as well. Hopefully we're slightly both.
Yes, hopefully we're a little bit calmed down now.
Just a touch.
Oh, dear. But anyway, yes, great start. But yes, welcome everybody.
Goodbye.
We'll talk about the fact at the end that we still don't have a name for this podcast, but we are going to have to come up with one before we stop. Night, just know that.
Before we stop today?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Before we stop today, we must have named this thing. So we're going to have to spend the final bit of the podcast naming this goddamn thing. I'm
going to have to see if I can get my dad to come over and water my kettle at the end of the episode.
You don't even have to do that. You can just hit the end call button and then it's done. All right.
Oh, that's for me escaping trying to name the episode.
Oh, I'm well aware of that. Suddenly you're going to go, oh no, I'm going through a tunnel on my PC and Discord somehow. Oh, calls dropped.
Yeah, because realistically, I'm gonna give you the most bullshit pretense possible to dig or to do the most to do it.
Look, we're doing it. I've got some ideas. But yes, we need a name. We need a name. And obviously you have to do some kind of weird naming of this episode, which makes no sense as well. So again, bear that in mind. I think I might just call this one Watering the Kettle, to be honest.
Okay, that's it. No, that's it.
But anyway, shall we get on back to the episode?
Probably not.
So again, no, let's not do it again. Let's stop referring to the one we already did, and let's just try and do this fresh. So, comparing this to the pilot, The Murder of Sherlock Holmes. So this was the first proper episode. Again, aired in 1984. So I think there was only like a week between the pilot and this one.
Really?
Yep. I don't think there was a huge amount of time. When did the first one go? Yeah, September 30th for the Murder of Sherlock Holmes, and then October 7th.
Are you on IMDb?
Lady. No, I'm on the Murder She Wrote wiki.
They're so... Okay, no. Now you're in trouble. Why do I not know about the wiki? Did you make the wiki?
I did not make the wiki.
Seems like something you would do.
I may have put some text into it, but I did not make the wiki. No, I don't know enough about Murder She Wrote to contribute. Maybe after this podcast. Hey, maybe we'll appear on the wiki as a fan project. I don't even know if that's something they do. But anyway, first proper episode, first proper 45-minute episode. It is called Deadly Lady. And yeah, very, very different. And I think most of those differences are for the better.
We're back to Cave Cove, or
Cabot Cove.
Thank you.
Cave Cove. So this is the first episode that remains in Cabot Cove. Obviously, Sherlock Holmes took place in New York.
I actually thought, based on the ending of the pilot, that we were actually going to be moving to a big city again. Truly,
I was hoping we were going to see what happened to those wrestlers.
The amount I wanted the next episode to be that, and the amount I knew they were not going to do it. And that makes me sad, because it would have been... I want to know how one was stabbed and one was drowned.
Yes. Yes. And maybe at some point they'll do that episode. They will never do that. But who knows, right? And we are introduced to some more Cabot Covians, which I'm assuming is what they call themselves.
I hate that.
What, Cabot Covians?
Yes, I hate that.
Well, what do you think they call themselves?
People.
Yeah, but they're from Cabot Cove. Come on.
No, they probably call themselves their state. At least in the U.S., that's the most common thing to do, is to refer to what state you live in.
But your states are huge.
Yeah, but she's also in the Pacific Northeast, which is much smaller. Or not that... I give up.
Oh dear. All right, so the Cabotians doesn't make any sense. Cabot Covians is much better.
You would say you're from Cabot Cove. It's not You know what? They're Covians now.
Just no, because there'll be many. They're not covens. We're not getting into witchcraft here.
It's got Cove.
It does. So you're trying to say that all witches come from a cove?
Yes.
This second taping of this has just gone off the rails already. All right, so
we're introduced to some lovely people. One of them is Amos, the sheriff, who we get to realize is kind of a foil but also kind of not. And then Ethan, her good personal friend, who it's more like brother and sister, but I felt like I was a little surprised we didn't get to meet Ethan a little bit more as a person. And it was just already like I know they've obviously in the show had a long friendship. They're people who already well know each other, but it did feel a little bit weird as an audience member to not be given just a little bit more of who he was, why he was, and why they're friends. Just a touch.
Yes, I agree. Like the whole so the episode starts. There's a hurricane hitting Cabot Cove, and Ethan pops in to Jessica Fletcher to make sure she is okay.
And he pops into her while she's there at the lighthouse, and then teleports back to her house later.
That's right. We did talk about the lighthouse the first time round, but you'll never know what that was about.
Right.
That's lost to the ether. Well, that's not true, actually. I probably have the audio of this, just not the video. So maybe I'll upload the audio of the first attempt we did as well.
This is going to be so cursed.
So he pops in to make sure she's okay, and also sets up the fact that there is a boat in trouble.
Yes, a yacht.
In the storm. A yacht, yes, a fancy yacht. They have on the radio, but they're in trouble and there's nothing they can do about it while the storm is raging on, so they'll see in the morning what is what. So we cut to the morning. Jessica Fletcher is on the docks talking to some fishermen. She's got to make money somehow. And...
No.
Favors for sailors. And they have what I would say is a very stilted conversation, which basically boils down to Ethan's not there. He's towing the people back in on the boat.
And let her know, and let Jessica know when he gets in. And then also, actually, for the plot to move along, why does Ethan even need to reach out to her for that? Because it is Amos, the sheriff, who almost immediately reaches out to her to let her know, come back down to the docks.
Well, I think at that point of view, you don't know there's anything wrong. I think she's just either looking for Ethan, make sure he's safe, or is, she is a nosy busybody, so she would want to know what happened to the people on the boat.
Fair enough.
And at that stage, the sheriff wouldn't even be involved in her mind, right? There's no mystery. There's just been people... I
was going to say it doesn't help develop the plot or develop the characters, but no, you are right.
So then she then heads back home, and there is a weird stranger fiddling with her weeds. I can't remember what name... Somehow. Ralph. And he is introduced as a hobo, and is basically looking for work for food. But Jessica Fletcher sees through that incredibly quickly. So we know that he's not what he's saying he is, but we don't know what the point of this character is at this stage. There's just a weird man at Jessica Fletcher's house.
But we do know he's comes from a well-to-do life based on things like his watch, his well-tailored clothes.
Yes, very wealthy. Actually, when she leaves the first time, when the sheriff calls, has she already put into our mind that he is not who he seems to be, or is that afterwards?
I believe that's before. Let me quick scrub. I'm almost positive I think it is before.
It is before, because he overhears the conversation with her and the sheriff.
That's right. And he eats her eggs.
Yes. So she then goes back down to the dock because the sheriff has asked for her help. Again, it seems unusual to me that the sheriff would ask for Jessica's help at this stage.
Gotta quit saying it again.
I say again all the time. This isn't even in reference to the fact we've done this before.
I disagree, but okay.
So
again,
for the 8th time.
It seems peculiar that the sheriff calls her down for what, functionally speaking, is a missing person or a drowned person off of a yacht.
Well, I just think, because he phones and he introduces her to the sisters as someone he calls to help from time to time, which indicates that he has done this before. Now,
and trusts her to some extent.
Now, I don't know how much time is meant to have passed since the initial pilot episode, where she first releases her book to now. So I don't know if he's been using her before she became a famous mystery author, or only afterwards. I think it's indicated that this has been going on for a while.
Well, she does have a full another book that's because with the interaction. So we were wondering why Ralph the hobo came to her, and in that conversation, he does reveal that he already knows who she is.
Yes.
By looking at the back cover of her book and saying it's her, and he says he's already read it, but it's a preprint, and it's a hardback preprint,
Yes.
which would be the entire time to not only write another book, get it edited, and start the binding and selling, all the marketing you would need to get the next book ready.
Yeah.
That's at least 6 months, I would assume. At least.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the author, right? But yes. You'd imagine between 6 months and a year. Although we also don't know how long. We don't know. Like, all we knew from Sherlock Holmes is that the nephew had taken the first book.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean she hadn't written many others.
Fair.
During that stage. So we don't know that. And we also know she's working on another one. So she's clearly quite prolific and writes a lot.
Well, and even begs for enough time to get 3 more paragraphs out before losing power, which is...
So clearly it's part of what she does. But yeah, I think it's weird that the sheriff calls her down at this stage. Like, convenient, I think, is something you hear a lot when you're talking about a Murder, She Wrote plot and why Jessica Fletcher just happens to be there
Fair.
At that time. And I think it happens a lot in this one. So we're then introduced to 4 sisters who tell us that their father went overboard during the storm. And the sheriff, to my mind, seems overly suspicious about that. But again, maybe this is just small town cop stuff. I don't know. Like, I understand the suspicion. I don't understand why you call Jessica Fletcher down, because you have the suspicion that maybe the sisters have killed the old man in some respect. I don't understand that. What were your thoughts on that?
We've got to think about, what does a small town cop in the U.S. look like? Are they someone who wants to have power over everyone? Are they also someone who wants to be lazy and not put any effort? And do they care about power over everyone outside of their town? Does he want to swing his around with...
I think you're thinking way too deeply about this character of the sheriff.
Fair enough.
Way too deeply. Like I said, I would understand if it was later on during the plot. And again, you're constrained by 45 minutes. You're constrained by TV and moving everything along. I get that. I think, to me, it would have made a lot more sense for Jessica Fletcher to come into the mystery a lot later, when the sheriff is convinced there has been foul play, but cannot for the life of him work out how or why.
Well, even when they bring in, so the whole thing they did with her requesting that she get notified when Ethan comes back in, she could have just by happenstance happened to be there and
she could have just been there.
Stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was no reason, I think, for the sheriff to call in the assistants. But he does. So Jessica Fletcher is now involved, is introduced to the daughters, and their story seems perfectly plausible. The father was knocked off the boat in the storm and was washed out to sea. And even Jessica Fletcher doesn't seem to have a problem with that story at that time. And so she then goes back home. Ralph is still there. It's revealed that he has made a call to Paris, Tennessee. I forgot again, you see.
Oh, no, it was Kentucky. I'm just trying to give you trouble.
Paris, Kentucky. Now, we knew he was going to do an old phone call based on the last shot we saw of him. The operator calling back just as Jessica Fletcher gets back to confirm the charges, convenient. massively
How else is that
convenient.
going to be discovered? I guess she could have. Yeah,
Well,
but if she
no,
come in during the phone call, that wouldn't work.
it's not about being discovered. It's the convenience of it happened right then, right? For it to be discovered. Like, what are the odds that the operator calls at the exact moment Jessica Fletcher comes back in the door? Realistically,
About 100%.
0. Right, unless it's scripted. I mean, and again, this is all part of the scripted. Jessica Fletcher needs to know these things. We need to know these things to put this case together as everything goes along. And this is a very as part of the way the clue is delivered and how early it's delivered. I really liked it.
Oh yes,
because it's an important clue delivered very early on, and you have no idea where it fits into this mystery, or if it fits at all. It could just be a throwaway statement.
there was a bit of fun with that gag as well, because the operator only told her it was Paris.
Yes.
Then when she tries to ask him, he does clarify that it's Paris, Kentucky.
Yes. And they do a little bit more of a back and forth. He tries to get information out about what's happened down at the dock, about the murder call. Now, I couldn't remember, but I do believe she does say something about murder on the call when she's on the phone with the sheriff for him to have overheard.
Yes.
Because he definitely asked her about the murder.
Well, the sheriff said, what, something suspicious? I don't, and I guess he said, there's something in the docs that'll pique your interest or something. And then he says the curiosity is about murder, and obviously murder.
Okay,
and
yes.
Then
so it makes sense that he asked, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense that he'd be interested, but he seems a little bit too interested.
Right.
And then we get to the pipe.
The pipe scenes just like in the first episode, or the pilot, it seemed like they tried to do something just slightly weird with romance between her and this Ralph hobo gentleman, who's obviously not a hobo. And she gives him her husband's, or her late husband's, pipe. And part of that is, I'm sure, to remind the audience that he is dead. But it also, they shoehorned in both she has no kids and her husband's dead. And neither one of those felt clean.
No, and they don't really feel relevant. And the pipe clearly meant something to her, so it seemed odd that she would give it away so freely to someone she doesn't know. And
who seems to know her just a little too well.
Definitely seems to know her and wanted to, because I don't understand why this all happened in Cabot Cove. I don't understand why he is at Jessica Fletcher's house. There's no reason for him to be at Jessica Fletcher's house at all through any of this, unless he is purposely gone to see Jessica Fletcher. But I don't believe that makes any sense based on what the plan that he knew was.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, and she would always, having her investigate it with no, why would he want her involved in the investigation?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense that you would want her involved in the investigation. It makes no sense that he is there, unless it is for the big reveal. But then I don't know why you just wouldn't reveal it in a different way. But so anyway, he's not who he says he is. Now I'm a little bit confused as to how we get to the next stage. So, one of the sisters ends up being arrested because she confesses. And I can't remember why she confesses.
Yeah, that's the thing I was trying to remember as well. But before that, we do get back to the point where the husband of one of the daughters comes in.
Oh, he arrives on the helicopter.
The coroner's inquest, which
They
seems like
want
a
the coroner's
peculiar-
inquest because they're clearly trying to shove suspicion. The audience suspicion is trying to be shoved onto, oh God, the Shelbys, right? Lisa Earl Shelby and whatever the guy's name is,
Bobby,
Shelby.
Brian
So
Shelby.
they come across as very unlikable and characters who have a lot of guilt. And that is
Right.
further explored later on when they have that little conversation in the hotel about how do we get rid of Grace, which is one of the other sisters.
I'm still not convinced that Brian Shelby wouldn't happily be a murderer, but for this episode, they're
Yes.
definitely placed as red herrings.
But yes, I can't quite remember what it is that forces
Maggie Earl.
Maggie to confess.
So I'm trying to remember.
Oh, I remember. It's because Jessica Fletcher looks in the sink and the water is draining. And she then goes to Ethan to prove that the boat was in the eye of the storm.
And they specified they knew exactly where
And they knew
were.
exactly where they were. So
And they
because the
triangulated,
boat
yeah,
was
that
in the
would've been-
eye of the storm, then he wouldn't have been washed out to sea. So therefore, something else must have happened. Now, this is interesting because as far as I can tell,
No,
as
so I
far
remember.
as I can... No, yeah, go ahead.
One thing I was trying to remember was not only why did Maggie confess, but why did she confess the way she did? And
Yep.
it is actually her setting herself up to be innocent of the exact crime she described, or that happens in the end.
Yes. But
I'd forgotten.
that's right. That is right. She spoilers. She can, again, we assume everyone has watched this episode. She confesses where it starts to fall apart for me is so Mr. Shelby and Maggie had a plan that he had been, I'm assuming the original plan that he had only been washed ashore. He takes his little boat to the beach and goes and chats up Jessica Fletcher for some reason. They arrive later and he's dead. But what I guess what I don't understand is this never would have happened if Jessica Fletcher hadn't got involved. Right? The sheriff forcing Maggie to confess. Because this Eye of the Storm thing was purely a Jessica Fletcher idea. Right?
Yeah, and then she would have no confession to make.
She would have no confession to make. So was she just going to drown her dad for a body to turn up afterwards? Or was it purely based on this moment?
Had she
that she jumps on the idea that actually I probably can murder the asshole and blame somebody else for it?
Well, at that point in time in the timeline, had she actually already murdered him yet? Or
No,
was
I do
that
not
actually
believe
going to be
so.
that evening?
That was going to be that evening. Right? Because then there's another bit that doesn't make sense as well when you think of the timeline as it's concluded.
No, scrubbing back through it almost immediately after that scene, she goes back home to not be able to find him because she realizes who he is when they pick up a paper. And one of the photos, or it's got the story of obviously the drowning at sea.
Yeah.
And it has a picture of the gentleman who drowned, which then she realizes is the hobo.
Yeah.
She immediately goes home, and that scene's right after the confession scene.
Yes. But if you think about how it goes, so he leaves. I'm trying to think if there's any what kind of a length of time is, because he leaves and she looks at the sink straight away. Right? She then has to go down to Ethan. So it's possible he has already been murdered. But I do not believe at that stage that the other sister's alibi is set up that she isn't in the hotel at that moment. Or
Good point.
Is the other sister there when Maggie confesses? Or is it just the three of them rather than the four of them?
I can't imagine it would have been just the three of them though, because obviously Jessica would have wanted all four in there to reveal, hey, we obviously know he didn't drown. He must have. So you would absolutely have to have all four sisters there because they're the only potential suspects.
Yes.
So maybe I am wrong on the timeline.
But was she actually there? Yeah. Well, this is what I can't. This is what I couldn't figure out. So the original plan, I'm assuming, never involved this being shot side story between the dad and the daughter, because there's no reason for it to exist, right? It goes out in the press. He's already called. Okay, so we need to introduce the other character here, who is the gold digging boyfriend of one of the other sisters, who.
His name was Terry.
His name was Terry. I think he was Terry Jones, actually, something like that.
Yes.
So he arrives because he wants to marry one of the sisters, Nancy, Nan, I think they kept on calling her.
Nan, yeah.
But the family believes he is just a gold digger and he had been paid off in the past. And in fact, the whole plan, and again, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, is that Papa Earl and Maggie Earl come up with this plan that they're going to pretend Papa Earl is dead, let Terry Jones know that he is dead, and see if he comes back.
I think that premise is also kind of absurd in the first place, because
I don't get it.
If they were up to the point of being engaged and her father just died, I could see a ex coming to train. If you still cared about the person, if things ended on a pleasant note, they could still be friends, and he'd, quite close friends, and come to see her. Though they then do force the scene not too much later that he's like, there's only one thing we need to think about right now, marriage, and it's only a day after her father died.
But again, this is something in the timeline that doesn't make sense, that whole conversation they have. But I don't understand how the initial plan was meant to work. How Papa Earl turning back up would have proved that Terry Jones was a gold digger.
Right. Well, and wouldn't that just be that would have to be illegal, because it's police resources that are going to end up being involved. Everything that's going to be involved with the search for a missing man. There's going to be a lot of money and time and legal attention to it. So, honestly, if he did live, it seems like it would have actually been kind of a full-fledged scandal and lawsuit.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Back to your thing. Yes, when Maggie confesses, Papa Earl must already be dead, because she is put straight into prison at that stage, right? She is incarcerated at that stage. And she's only allowed out when the coroner confirms that he hasn't been at sea for 3 days. It's only been less than 12 hours.
And the bullets didn't match her pistol that she kept in her. Because it was a different gauge that he was shot with compared to what she keeps on her. So he must have already been dead.
So he must have already been dead at that stage. Sorry, I just kind of putting that together.
You are correct. Nan couldn't have been there then, because I only saw 3 of them when I'm scrubbing through that scene, which makes no sense.
Yes, because it's revealed that Nan and Terry Jones are already together at that stage, because he arrived earlier than he said. Because he got the call from Papa Earl, who was pretending to be Ralph, at the house. That was the call to Paris, Kentucky, which brings him into the place. And Nan and him have spent a whole night together in a motel. Right? They then have that very awkward conversation about we should get married, and Nan doesn't seem very interested. Even though story-wise, they've already spent an entire night together in a motel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Is it only because he forces marriage to be? Well, no. She stops that conversation by saying, "I think I need to be alone," doesn't she?
yes,
So
which made sense when you think he just arrived, but
yeah,
not when they've been together for a whole night, assumingly together, happy as Larry. I mean, it might just be, excitement over seeing your ex fiance who hasn't been around for a while. A little bit of comfort because, as far as Nan is concerned, her dad is dead. Right?
yeah. She wasn't obviously let in on the plot that he was going to be fake dead, so that they could see if he shows up like a POS.
Yeah.
Terry shows up like a POS.
But yeah, like to me, those segments don't make a whole lot of sense when you kind of put the timeline together as it's explained as it goes on. They make sense at the time, but when you start to think about what you said, this conversation doesn't really seem like it would have happened at that stage.
I'm going to have to watch these a lot closer. You're catching more than I am.
I mean, even I'm not getting the full timeline of this one right. Because I'm trying to remember, because there's the initial confession with all of them. They then do the in the Eye of the Storm thing. Maggie then confesses that she shot him. So it makes sense that she confesses then that she shot him because she's already done it. Right? She's not making that up.
I'm still caught that. Right? Is it really only Ethan? Is the sheriff not involved when she goes to say the Eye of the Storm thing? And still, you.
No. So yeah, she goes to Ethan on the boat to work out the Eye of the Storm. And then they go, whether it's to the hotel, the sheriff is there, I'm pretty sure. Because she then says to all of them, but what I can't remember is if Nan is there or not at this stage. But
scrubbing through the episode, she's not, which it doesn't make sense why she wouldn't be.
Because she's already with Terry Jones in the motel.
But it doesn't make sense because the police would have wanted her there to investigate her as well, and Jessica Fletcher would have wanted her there. Jessica would definitely, as the inquisitor as she is.
But if they don't know where she is, there's not a lot you can do about it. And
fair, I guess you might as well.
You're still trying to prove that. Hang on, what you're saying is bull malarkey, right?
Yeah, and at least get someone asked.
Yeah, so that's when Maggie confesses, and yes, at that stage, Maggie must have already done the crime. And she must have already set Nan up.
Yep.
Right? Because I don't think that could have happened afterwards. So why? And this again is what doesn't make sense to me, because Maggie killing Papa Earl seemed to be the whole point. But at no point until Jessica Fletcher gets involved does it make any sense. Right? So, unless they were going to do this anyway, because what we're saying is that Maggie has already killed her dad by shooting him before the revelation of the Eye of the Storm.
Yeah.
Right? So she's already done it. So how is Maggie going to confess to this without it looking incredibly obvious if Jessica Fletcher didn't get involved?
That's a good point.
Because you're going to find the body because it's right there.
And you're going to find the bullet holes.
You're going to find the bullet holes, and you're going to find Nan's shoes because they've been placed there. Maybe she didn't need to confess, but then... And then why... Right. So the other thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is that why, when the whole thing comes in, do the other two sisters back up the gunshot theory? No, Maggie must have set this up on the boat. Because Maggie must have fired shots after Papa Earl is gone. Because the other two sisters admit that they heard gunshots.
And that's to cover for the fact it was a plot to
Maggie
capture Terry.
No, because they didn't know about the plot to capture Terry. It was only Maggie and Papa Earl.
Oh.
The other sisters weren't involved in it.
Well, why else would they have agreed to...
Because this is what I think happened now, right? So Papa Earl goes off on his little boat because he has a plan with Maggie that they're going to do this weird thing to convince Nan that Terry Jones is a gold digger. It's not a good plan. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think it was only Nan who was left out. I think the sisters were in at least one of the other sisters.
No. It's explained that it was only Maggie and Earl and Papa Earl in the episode. I'm pretty sure Maggie says that it was a plan between the two of them.
I'm going to rewatch it because I don't think that's what it said. But okay.
I'm pretty sure it did.
We both like semantics and to argue. And I can't watch it while we're talking.
No, that is true.
And I need to figure out how bad my memory is.
So, but yes. So I think Maggie has been planning this all along. So she can be on top of the boat while all the sisters are down below. The storm must be part of it because, as far as Papa Earl is concerned, he's meant to have been washed overboard, and that's how he died. Right? Maggie has leapt on this. Must have fired while on the boat for the two sisters to say yes, we heard those shots.
Then why were they covering for her?
Because why wouldn't you? She's your sister. She's your sister, and you didn't really like your dad anyway, and you're about to end up with $25 million in your bank account.
Yeah, both of them were definitely not on Maggie's side. Or, excuse me, on their father's side.
Yeah, no one liked their father. So the fact that they would back up that story makes some sense.
I think the only one who actually did like the father was Nan. I think he actually treated her well.
She treated her well. So Maggie was always going to shoot her father. I don't know how they were going to get to this kind of false confession thing, or whether the false confession was forced because she's already set Nan up.
Well, and
how Maggie would know that Terry Jones was going to turn up earlier? I guess she would have known that Papa Earl was going to make the phone call to get him in.
Absolutely.
Because that must have been part of that plan. And then maybe she was the one who suggested you go to a different motel.
Yeah.
So you don't have an alibi. I guess.
Yeah. Well, and go be off with your ex-fiance.
Yeah. So Maggie was always going to do this.
I think also it was always going to be her confession that she did shoot him on the boat in jest, reveal that this was the plot, and part of the plot was to make the gunshots, but also that it was with the gun she already owned, the pistol, that doesn't match the caliber that he was actually shot with. So it's all the sisters were kind of covering for her, but also it structures it such that, because the police would have investigated her when they found the body with gunshots, even without Jessica Fletcher, and she would admit that it was part of the plot, and she pretended to shoot him while on the boat, but it wasn't actually her shots.
Yes, but if it was always the plan to have to do that confession, which maybe it wasn't, maybe that wasn't part of the plan, it's only because of Jessica Fletcher that she has to make that confession. Right. So maybe that wasn't part of the plan. And maybe she just ran with that as a way to get out of it. Right. But it also gives her the perfect alibi, right? Because essentially she is the only one who couldn't have done it because she has been in prison while Papa Earl was shot.
And it's also kind of perfect to have I pretended to shoot him. I didn't actually shoot him. Here's my gun.
Yes. And it also leaves it open to the fact that it could be somebody other than Maggie who shot him because she's confessed that plan in front of other people, including the person you're meant to think is guilty, which is either the posh sister or her money-grubbing husband.
The Shelbys.
Right? Because they are both there when she does that confession.
Yes.
Right? So they would have that information. So it would make sense. So you're meant to believe that Maggie is the only one who could be innocent at this stage.
I still think the Shelbys would kill. I'm not sure if I said that this time or last time, but I think the Shelbys would kill for money.
I think the Shelbys would kill for money. I mean, they were happy that Maggie was going to end up in, well, Nan was going to end up in prison. Actually, it may have been Maggie. I can't remember who was in prison when they had that conversation. That their share would go up by 8-9 million because you can't inherit if you've killed someone.
Also, I know they said he's worth a lot of money, but they stuck to exactly 100 million, and that, like, because 8 more would be going from 25 to 33 million.
Yeah.
Why is he worth exactly 100 million?
I think that was just a number they plucked out of the air, right?
Well, but no one's worth exactly 100 million.
No, of course not. But, I think, but again, like 100 million at that stage is like them saying $1 billion now, right?
Well, yeah, but if you don't even have to say he's worth hundreds of millions. He's worth millions of dollars, and we're going to inherit a quarter or a third of his fortune.
I think the idea. I think at this stage in 1984, I think 100 million is probably the richest you could have been.
But he doesn't. You can. Just
I don't know. No. But I think you're trying to.
Or $1 billion.
No. I don't think $1 billion would have existed at this stage.
That's not the point. My point is specifically, you created a specific round number when you don't have to, and you could always just refer to it as a quarter of the fortune or a third of the fortune. Though that does actually make me wonder, because how close was this in time to when, was it A&W released their third-pound burger, and McDonald's had their quarter pounder, and everyone wanted the McDonald's quarter pounder because they thought 4 was more than 3. Yeah. So maybe that is why they specified the difference. Why they gave it actual numbers.
I think they specified it, because they say it at the sheriff says at the start, he must be worth millions. Right. And then I think you go up to the 100 million because what you're saying there, no, they've gone up another layer, right? You got your millionaires, they might have 1 or 2. Your 100 million people are probably the people who own the world at this stage, right? We're probably talking about, because even now, I think you say someone is worth $1 billion, that's still considered a lot of money, right?
Yeah, you're in the upper echelon of society. You are the wealthy.
No one has hit the trillion yet, as far as I'm aware, in personal wealth. I think Elon Musk is still the richest man. I think he's still worth billions. Not
for
trillions.
About 5 minutes, someone else was richer. I think it was Max Fosh.
Maybe. But again, I think that's why, like, you're being told he's the rich of the rich,
right?
And then you make those two look like complete money grubbing people, like they would murder someone for 8-9 million more, even though they're going to get 25 million anyway, right? And again, it's nice, easy maths for the audience to do, right? What's 100 split 4 ways? 25. I could do that.
I still think a third and a quarter, just specifying that way, would have been more than sufficient. And you could specify his total wealth by just specifying the number of digits. It's in the 6 figures, or no, it's in the, what would that be, 9 figures?
Yeah, but then again, 100 million is easier than saying that. Really? Than saying, he's worth 9 figures. Especially because at that stage, what was considered 6 figures and 9 figures may have been different. And I know that sounds incredibly stupid.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand what you mean there.
But at one time,
just dislike.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it seems odd that you would just say he's worth 100 million, but at the same time, unless he's worth 200 million or 150, you probably would have rounded up or down to 100 million to talk about his wealth. Maybe 125. But I think what it says is that he's worth 100 million, but probably not 110.
It hurt my suspension of disbelief to have the specific numbers. I guess that's my biggest problem.
Yeah, but I don't think it is specific numbers, really, right? I think everybody works on the basis that he's worth roughly around 100 million. It may be 99 million. It may be 98. It may be 95. You're not going to get the exact number at any stage during that. It just wouldn't happen, I don't think.
I didn't like it.
But where were we in terms of the case before we got onto that? So Maggie is the only innocent one. We're now more convinced than ever that it's the Shelbys who are doing this, right? Because they want the money.
And
And they've
Mr.
had-
Shelby almost explicitly says he's going to kill one other of the sisters.
Yes. And they've had the opportunity. They've been there the whole time and they know all the information. Then we get to the body is discovered. No, the body must have already been discovered because that's when Maggie gets out. Because that's when she confesses that she didn't actually murder them. And it was
Right.
all a scheme between Maggie and
Maggie and Mr. Earl.
Maybe the sisters were in on the initial one. Maybe
I
it was
swear
just
they
Nan
were.
who was out of it. Maybe, but yes, that would make more sense why they would back up the gunshot story as well. So, but yes, so they were going to fake Stephen Earle's death to draw out the gold digger fiance.
And then Maggie planned to frame Nan and the actual murderer.
Yes. And then so they find Earl, Papa Earl on the beach. He's shot exactly as Maggie said. And they find, someone manages to find a heel of a shoe. And then it takes Jessica Fletcher to dig down about 2 grains of sand to find the actual shoes.
They find the shoes, and what they can't find is the
is it the other way around? They couldn't find the last heel. But in either way, they should have found that heel. Come on.
Yeah.
A little bit of digging and they would have found that heel.
I did like her cheeky line, because the gentleman who found the shoes, missing the heel, said it was partially buried. And
yes.
Jessica Fletcher responds, partially buried is also the same as partially exposed. I did like that expansion on the...
Yeah.
And think about things a different way.
There were quite a few lines. I mean, there were quite a few cheeky lines to Jessica Fletcher in this one, which I enjoyed. But then, so we get to the shoes. And we get to, I think, was one of the most interesting, this is a plot point you need to pick up on, but which I probably didn't, which is she asked Nan to try the shoes on. Now,
yes,
we already know they're her shoes, and we know they're going to fit, right? But clearly Jessica does not think she is guilty. So why does she get her to try the shoes on? Now, they explain it at the end of the episode why they did it. But no, I did not pick up on the fact that she wanted Nan to try the shoes so she could look at her feet. I did not pick up on that.
Oh, the sole reason was because no one would walk on the beach. So I didn't pick it up at the time, but the retrospect of why she actually wanted to put on the shoes was she can't imagine anyone having lost their shoes and then continuing down the beach. Her feet would be profoundly bruised if that were true, and she doesn't think no one would lose their shoes and not get them.
And they explain that at the end, but no, I did not get that was what they were trying to do. Was her feet are fine.
I also just
excuse me.
It just struck me as today's era, asking someone to randomly put on shoes and then staring at their feet as they put them on. It's just.
But yes, I didn't pick up on that one. And then we get to the point where Jessica Fletcher at this stage has clearly already worked out who the murderer is.
Exactly.
I hadn't at this stage. I had my suspicions. I definitely didn't think it was the Shelbys because they were laying that on way too thick and it felt like misdirection.
Exactly. Yeah, I was off that train too.
I didn't know who the murderer was. Part of me at this stage was wondering if Shelby had shot himself just to get the sisters in trouble, his daughters in trouble. But that was clearly the wrong thought. But then they get to the scene where obviously Jessica Fletcher is setting her trap, and she's clearly setting her trap. Mm-hmm. And she's got something in the bag. She goes back to the hotel. All the sisters come back very festive. And she talks to all of them in turn, which is interesting because I think at that point that they're trying to show you who she thinks is guilty. And it's given away very in pretty much the next sentence when Maggie, which is the last one she speaks to, says something about pink shoes.
Yes.
Right? And there's no way she would know they were pink.
Unless she stole them.
unless she set the whole thing up.
And I did like that the shoes that, or the heel that left was the blue heel. That
yes,
it was a very fun way to tell Maggie you fucked up.
Yeah. And I like that. And as soon as that pink shoe line came out, you knew exactly who the murderer was.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it's then revealed about 20 seconds later, but I thought that was nice. As the audience, you can jump ahead on this one and work it out before Jessica Fletcher reveals everything. Right?
Yes.
It's a little bit too obvious, a little bit too on the nose, I thought, with that one particular line. But
if
I
you're
like
stupid and not creative, you don't guess it before Jessica reveals it all.
Yeah, but then she reveals it all in the next 20 seconds and it all kind of goes, it makes sense. And I like the fact that most of the clues were there, even if around it, the whole kind of setup and premise makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. The sprinkling of clues did feel quite nice.
Yes. I thought the clues were delivered quite well. They were delivered at random times, and you were you weren't just guessing and jumping from piece to piece. You were getting pieces of the puzzle and putting them together, not necessarily at the time when you got the piece, right?
And many of the times when they gave the piece, they made it clear enough that what they're giving you is something that you need to at least pay attention to.
Yes.
They didn't just kind of hide it in. It was just enough obvious to pique your interest, but not obvious. And that's actually, I guess, what partly threw me with Mr. Shelby coming to visit her and knowing the book and all that, is none of that actually. Part of that felt like it was a hint to the peculiarity going on, and that wasn't. So I guess that's why that scene, or that whole section, kind of stands out, is because everything else that was just slightly out of place was clear enough that it was a something you should be picking up on, something you should be focusing on.
Yeah. And then, so I think the other bit that I missed, which confirms that it's Maggie earlier on, and I'll be honest, I don't remember this bit, but the Murder, She Wrote wiki is telling me this happened. I believe there is a conversation between Jessica Fletcher and Terry. Just the two of them.
Yes.
Apparently in that conversation, Terry mentions that Maggie told him about the real death of Stephen Earle.
I don't remember that either.
Because yes, if that happened, then yes, at that point you have to know it's Maggie because she'd be the only one who knew about it, I believe. Because that must, but I don't remember that scene. Well, I remember the scene, but I don't remember the conversation well enough to say that is what happened. But yes, so that if that was a clue, that is a clue that I missed completely. I
will say, in the very end, when Nan does break up with Terry, it felt like she should have broken up with him when he was immediately discussing marriage and knew at that point that he was just in it for the money. I don't feel like they gave anything later that clarified that it was just about the money from the get-go.
He runs away when he's threatened with prison.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Basically. Because they put Nancy into custody, even though they know it's not her, to set up a trap. And then he goes and argues with the sheriff, and the sheriff says something about the penalty is the same for
witnesses or conspirators
or whatever. Yeah, than it is for actual murderers, and he just runs.
That's right. I forgot about that.
That's kind of where that comes from. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot. It did feel very different from the Sherlock Holmes episode, where I think they tried to be a little bit more Miss Marple. And this one very much seems more, okay, here's a very stupid plot by a family to try and prove something which makes no sense. And then here's another weird murder that happens because of it. And here are all the pieces. It didn't, in my mind, it didn't gel together particularly well. if that makes sense. Like, some of it seemed rushed. They seem to have to introduce people at random times. The whole Ralph Papa Shelby being the same character and he just turns up at Jessica Fletcher's house made no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was explained at all. I understand why it's there in terms of the story, because it proves to us and Jessica Fletcher that he was alive when he should have been dead. I get
And that she knew he was alive because she can
Yes.
prove he had the pipe.
Yes. But why he was there in the first place, to me, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
They could have accomplished all of that with a out-of-the-way kind of scene at a cafe where she runs into him, chats with him, and then gives him something of note. Like if coffee got spilled on him and she handed him her personal handkerchief, it would have also covered that, and she still would have been able to recognize him in the newspaper picture because she's Jessica Fletcher.
Yeah. Which would have made more sense in terms of the mystery. And as it was explained that, you know, she recognized that guy from the coffee shop or whatever it was, who she just saw once, but she's got that kind of memory. It makes sense that, okay, he wouldn't have the pipe, but, you know, was the pipe really necessary? Maybe to convince the sheriff, so the sheriff would go along with it because she knew something the sheriff knew, but she shouldn't have known.
Yeah, but something as simple as like she seems like the kind of person who might actually have a personally personally embroider her own kerchiefs, and then is also kind enough to give that to someone else in a moment of need.
There could have been something else in the pocket. Yes, I agree. And they also try to play around with this idea that she's a little bit dotty and makes stuff up, which I mean, clearly she does. She's a fiction writer, mystery writer. But yeah, Ethan?
Yes, the friend.
Plays around with this idea that, no, she never saw this guy. And I'm wondering if for a little part of it, they were trying to indicate that he was a ghost.
Oh.
Earl was actually a ghost. And I'm glad that's not what they went with. But I think for a while they were trying to convince you that Jessica Fletcher had gone a little bit mad and was maybe talking to a ghost.
Yeah, I did. Ethan absolutely not believing her. It didn't. No. He would know about the.
I think it makes sense. Not the fact that there would be somebody called Ralph in her house, although that doesn't make sense. But I can see why Ethan wouldn't go along with oh yeah, here's Ralph, who you've never met. He's gone now. But he was actually Mr. Shelby.
That is right.
Sorry, Mr. Earl, who's dead. No, that wouldn't make sense. I can understand why the friend goes, yeah, but you know you're dotty and you make shit up all the time. Stop it, Jessica Fletcher, stop it. And that does seem to be the kind of relationship they have. It's like that brother-sister thing, right? It's like, I'm going to roll my eyes at you because I think you're being a little bit weird again. Have you taken your meds? I think is a line they would have said in a modern interpretation of this episode. Have you taken your meds?
Had she only mentioned that it was Ralph and not Mr. Earl, I have a feeling he might have believed her a bit more. But this was so outlandish because she does make things up for books, but he also probably knows she's actually really detail-oriented in actual day-to-day life. But yeah.
Yeah. But no, all in all, I thought it was a good episode. You probably didn't need 4 sisters. You probably only really need 2 or 3. You needed 3. The 4th one was unnecessary. The one who had a husband who they hadn't seen for 4 years, unless they were trying to, or were going to at some point try and bring that other husband in, and maybe that was the man who was at Jessica Fletcher's house for some reason. Like, the 4th sister didn't seem to have a point whatsoever.
I think 3 would have been too few, though, because the 4th sister, the one in particular you're not talking about, she kind of acts as the baseline. She didn't murder her husband, or she's the normal one, if you will. She's happy he's dead, and she's also not, because she plays off of the obvious red herring that is the Shelbys.
Yeah. And then I think the only other thing that to me didn't really make sense or wasn't really the idea that Maggie wanted to kill her father was implemented very early on. In fact, it may have been the fourth sister who describes the rest of the three sisters, so maybe that's why she was there.
Right.
And she's the one who describes the reasons why maybe they would do this. But yes, like the father's clearly used Maggie as, I would say, the wife replacement.
Yes.
And it takes all that emotional baggage, and you kind of understand that.
And the 80s or even 50s wife position.
Yes.
Definitely not a.
What I don't think was particularly well highlighted in the show until they told you right at the end is that there is this jealousy between Maggie and Nan.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was really ever brought up. Maybe fleetingly, but not in a way that would like go, yes, I'm going to set her up for murder so I can kill two birds with one stone type thing, which is what Maggie actually did, or attempted to do, until Jessica Fletcher worked it all out.
Is it okay to have that motive not be fully revealed within the episode, though? Because that can be the last thing you don't understand is why try to flame Nan.
Maybe, but it's just one of those things. If you're trying to do a mystery where you want people to be able to keep up with it, suddenly revealing something out of nowhere feels very, just wrong and not kind of. Motive is one of the most important things. And I think, okay, you got half the motive, she wants to kill the dad. The other half that she's willing to set up a sister who, from what we've seen from the entirety of the rest of the episode, okay, not Nan because she didn't know about the whole plan, is, they were backing each other up the entire time.
Yeah.
So the fact that suddenly one sister really doesn't like the other sister is a little bit odd. You might argue that it's layered in there because I don't know. I really don't know. And maybe you're meant to think that the whole fact that Papa Earl is doing this ridiculous scheme to prove to Nan that there's a gold digger after her, and he would clearly never do this for Maggie.
Right.
Maybe you're meant to bring that into it. Like I don't know, but yeah,
he's so invested in her life and doesn't seem to actually, and then just forces Maggie to,
as long as Maggie's there to look after him. Yeah, basically, as long as Maggie's there to look after him, he doesn't care. But I think probably a little bit, even one scene where they looked oddly or a little bit bitchy towards each other, I think would have done enough for you to think, okay, like maybe they don't like each other. Kind of thing,
or even just her looking like it could have been a scene with Terry and Nan together, and Maggie look at the two of them rather. Well, no, because then that would be.
I look at the two, roll their eyes. Like there, I think maybe there are subtle hints in the episode that I missed. I don't know, but I think there are. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. But overall, it's episode 1. There's now one. I loved the line. We don't have crooks in Cabot Cove. Burglars. I thought that was hilarious. When
yes,
I think we're going to have to keep a tally of body count that actually happens in Cabot Cove.
Oh God,
as the series goes on, because it's already at 1. Okay, they were strangers. It's already at 1.
They're still dead there.
Yeah, it's still dead there.
Where's cemetery going to be?
Surely you would bury them. You would take them home, wouldn't you?
Earl obviously is going to be buried at home because he has the money.
Yeah,
but we know more. There's going to be at least 200 more murders, at least. Even if a few episodes don't include murder, there's still 200 more.
I think they're all going to involve murder. I think. Well, no. The clue in the title is that she writes books, actually. But
I wager that there's going to be at least one episode without a murder.
I wager you're probably wrong. There are going to be episodes about Jessica Fletcher, but
I think that would be a good twist for one of them.
I think this would be
260 episodes.
I'd be intrigued to see, but I think this would be a hard show to suddenly it's Jessica Fletcher in a bank robbery. Well, she has to try and talk them down, like scenario.
It would be similar to this one, where it was a.
Oh, like a red herring type operation, like someone's trying to
Exactly.
disappear for insurance fraud or something like that.
Exactly.
That okay, yeah, that I can understand. Yeah, like a fake murder to investigate. I can understand. I thought you meant like with other cop procedurals where
No.
no. And I guarantee you there will be. Well, I mean, it's already happened basically in the first episode.
Exactly.
Jessica Fletcher's on holiday. There just happened to be a murder nearby. I hate those. I think Columbo was the worst. I think Columbo went on a cruise and there was a murder on the boat, and it is such a stupid episode. Anyway,
I think that's almost necessary in a show like this to have a new cast and have a new. At some point, you suspend disbelief a bit if.
Maybe, but I'd like to watch the episode of Columbo where he's just on holiday having a good time, drinking some beers. Same with Murder She Wrote. Why can't we just have an episode where she is just on a book tour and didn't murder someone because she's some kind of murderous, soul-sucking succubus? I don't know what Jessica Fletcher is.
We've had a lot more. I'm familiar with shows these days that do that. Like one of the ones that occurs to me is Avatar: The Last Airbender. They have a whole episode where they're in the Earth King, and none of it is specifically moving the plot forward. It's about learning more about the characters.
Yeah.
How many
I love episodes like that.
Yeah, so do I, but would that have ever happened in a weekly serialized show like this? I'm trying to think, did MASH ever? Yeah, they had some bullshitty episodes, and I guess that was out before this.
They probably did, but what? MASH probably all... The MASH is different because MASH is just the setting.
Right. Well, they do...
So you can do different things within that setting. Like Murder, She Wrote is a show about a murder mystery. So if you suddenly have an episode without a murder mystery, it's going to seem really weird. It's not a show about Jessica Fletcher, if that makes sense. It's
not titled after Jessica Fletcher.
No, but it's not a show about Jessica Fletcher. It's a show about the mystery of the week. And
okay.
I don't know. As time goes on, because I know some of the Ethan and the sheriff definitely appear more than once. I don't know how often they appear, but I know I've seen other episodes with them in, so I know that they do appear more than once as time goes on. But yeah, like it's not. If it was called Cabot Cove, you could imagine maybe they would do an episode where they do something that's not a murder mystery, but it's a murder of the week. Someone's got to get murdered.
I wanted to touch on one additional thing. We mentioned that Amos kind of likes, kind of doesn't like. The sheriff kind of likes, kind of doesn't like Jessica.
Yeah.
But the deputy sheriff cleaning the gun and not telling Jessica, that just felt weird. That was
comic relief. That was pure comic relief. The fact that she's like, I'm not going to tell you, and then she answers the phone while cleaning the gun and tells Jessica Fletcher everything. That was pure comic relief. Okay. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was.
It was funny. I just didn't get why. I guess she's got to stick up her ass would be the concept there.
Stick up her ass, and then it's just a little bit of merriment for the audience, right? Okay. Which I enjoyed. Anyway, we are over an hour in already. Final thoughts on the episode. What are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts? Not on the episode are that I'm worried I'm going to have trouble suspending disbelief by the time we're done with this podcast, but I am really enjoying these episodes way more than I thought I would, given how far back the show is and that it's just a mystery of the week show.
Yes,
I'm having fun.
I don't think that there are certain things that are aging it. The landline. What the hell is an operator?
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess we're both old enough that doesn't matter.
Yes,
to us.
What do you mean they call you to tell you you've called somewhere abroad and confirm the charges? What are you talking about? This is nonsense. There are things that age it, but like most of it, in fashion and stuff like that. But most of it, I think, is pretty evergreen, right? It's the character of Jessica Fletcher. Okay, she is a busybody. She does put her nose in places where it doesn't really belong, but she's doing it for the right reasons.
And those people still exist.
Yeah, they do. But yeah, like my final thoughts are at the end of Sherlock Holmes, I was very worried that we were going to go into what was a very messy show.
Because of how disjointed it was?
Because of how disjointed it was, because of how some of the clues that we were meant to get, I really don't think they delivered on in that first one.
Right.
And how the solution, especially with the whole, oh, he was a criminal on the run thing, just came out of nowhere. Completely blindsided, right?
Yeah.
And I was kind of worried we were going to go into, okay, if that's what they managed in an hour and a half, and they're trying to condense that down to 45 minutes, is it going to be worse? But no, I think we got to a much more light-hearted, in its own way, more succinct mystery. I believe they need to get better at red herrings, because I think it was too obvious in this one.
Yeah. You've kind of got to have some of those while you're still developing the characters. Season ones can still be difficult because you've got to spend some time developing. Yeah,
but remember, this is done by the same people who did Columbo, so they should be better at developing mysteries and cases.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Than they are. So this isn't their first stab at this. But I enjoyed this episode a lot more than the pilot.
Yes.
And I'm very interested to watch next week's. I'm expecting the stories to become very similar. Well, not the stories, but the cases. I'm expecting that we will be given, I'm trying to think, I think we'll be given 4 clues, then the solution in this one. Or maybe it's 5 clues. I would imagine that's how they're always going to go. There's going to be like 5 things you could pick up on, and then we're going to explain it to you. But it'll be interesting to see.
I hope it's not too formulaic, but yeah, you're probably right.
I think it will end up being fairly formulaic, but we will see. But hopefully the stories around it and the situations Jessica Fletcher gets herself in will be enough. I mean, it made it last till 2003.
Exactly.
When it was competing with Friends.
Yeah, I'd never watched enough Friends to care. I don't actually know what the big deal is.
It's more the fact that Murder, She Wrote and Friends were on, for a certain amount of their own, were on at the same time. I never would have thought that.
Woolly mammoths and the pyramids existed at the same time. I see what you're going for. I see.
But to me, Friends seems like a much. I never liked Friends either. I still don't. One, I didn't realize Friends. I think Friends started in 1994, and
really?
I believe and I believe Murder, She Wrote ends in 1996, and then there's 4 movies afterwards. I didn't realize how old Friends was. For a start, it makes sense based on, because I did a school project based on Friends, so it makes sense that it was there. But yeah, I never would have put Murder, She Wrote and Friends at sharing the airwaves at any time during their productions. Like, they feel like poles apart.
Right.
But yeah, there you go. A little bit of spoilers. Final thing on the agenda, Knight, and don't you dare start going through a tunnel or watering your kettle.
Well, that's been Police Cake.
No. We need a name.
Lady. I hope y'all have a fantastic day. And
don't you go. We need a name for the. We've got a name for the episode, Watering the Kettle. I'm happy with that. We need a name for the series. All right. He left. He actually left. And I'm not a fan of it. I think he's back.
I had to do it.
He did leave. I'm not a fan. And I'm not a fan. All right.
Okay.
Ideas.
What were your ideas?
Well, we either try and do a play on Murder, She Wrote. Still like Murder They Watched. Murder They Discussed. Something like that. Or what about the Cabot Cove Chaps?
I like that.
Now, do we want chaps, as in 2 chaps, or do we want chats, as in we were talking about it?
The Cabot Cove Assless Chaps.
No.
Damn
Also, does CCC mean anything that we're going to get told off for?
it.
If we do that, is there some kind of faction called the CCC?
Quick Google says
Google seems to
maybe
say
not.
no. Okay. All right. Cabot Cove chaps. I'll do chaps. I'm not doing assless chaps. But I will. I know all chaps like that are assless, but we're not doing those kind of chaps. It's two chaps, as in people.
You do realize every time we're recording these, I am wearing assless chaps, right?
Oh, like you're wearing anything.
I am fully dressed. I like it cold, and so I'm in a hoodie. I'm in a hoodie.
Fully dressed for you just means nude and lactating all over the place. But anyway, that's how you end an episode. That's how you end an episode.
I did not think we were going to bring that into this, but okay.
Thank you for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week with episode 3, which I don't know what it's called. But yeah, episode 3, season 1. We will on next week. Thanks for joining me, Knight.
Guten Tag.
And we will see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Hello.